Hello, it is Dear Corona Diary, and I am talking about Black Lives Matter. I am a Black life, well, at least half of one, and I am making this video because I did not want to make this video. I did not want to talk about this. And I was not going to talk about anything until I talked about this. I guess you could call this the elephant in the room. So yes, I am a half black woman in America, and I was gonna create this. As I mentioned in the introductory video, I was going to create this channel to talk about, stuff from my diary that I was writing during this Corona thing. And when all the BLM stuff happened, I didn't want to talk about anything because I thought, okay, that's important. So that's something that I should talk about, but I didn't want to talk about it. But I realized if I don't talk about it, I'll never talk about anything. And yeah, so I'm making this video out of necessity to sort of relieve some of the pressure. There's just so much to say, obviously. This is a crazy situation. So let me start by saying that yes, I am a half black person. Um, I can't I imagine my life, my situation, I don't deal with a lot of the things that other people, full black people have to deal with. Um, that's a good place to start. Why am I not a full black person? It's not, I think it's by design, to be honest. My father is black, my mother is not. And to be perfectly honest, I think my father wanted to have mixed children. And that sounds so harsh, like he set out to, I don't know, like he hates himself or something, but I honestly think it's something that's in the family. If you look at my grandmother on my father's side, she has a very deep complexion. And you look at my grandfather and he looks like Will Rogers. He looks practically he yeah, he's like the highest of yellow, and also looks very Native American too. Um, when I was a kid, I wasn't always I saw him so infrequently, even though it's not that my grandparents split up, he kept to himself a lot, and that's a whole other story in itself, but I would see him very infrequently, and so when I did see him, I was like, "Who's that guy? Who's that white guy? Who's that who's that Native American guy?" I would, like, forget that he was my grandfather. That's how infrequently I would see him, even if I was at his house. So, I think that was something, my I don't know much about my grandmother's family, but I suspect that she was dark and thought, "I'm gonna get me the lightest light who ever lighted," and she did, and so that was my grandfather, and I think my father, I mean, looking at his past relationships, of which I don't know very much, but, he did have there was another woman that he had a child with, and she was very light-skinned. Not that my father, because my since my grandparents were on the opposite ends of the spectrum, my father was somewhere in the middle, but he chose someone who was lighter than him, for his other relationships, and then with my mother, she wasn't black at all, and in fact, she's technically Mexican, but didn't look Mexican, she looked like a white lady, everyone thought she was white. So, people think that I am half black and half white, which technically I'm not. Granted, I mean, we all have a bunch of white in us. So, yeah, I think, I'm not black by design. I think it's a hereditary thing, a hereditary, I guess you could call it preference, although I would say there's, more, that's putting a nice name on it. I think there's more to it than that, but, and if you look at let's see, on my father's side of the family, he has a bunch of siblings. They didn't all marry or date outside of their race. They didn't all go in the direction of my father. But there was, I got plenty of mixed cousins. I mean, on both sides of the family, we're all pretty mixed up. And that's lovely, and I like it. And if you look at my sisters, my siblings, they have all had white partners, except for me. Um, and, the way I talk and my interests and stuff, I think they were cultivated to head in the, you could say, white direction. This is hard to talk about. I This is not something I don't I don't bring up a lot. But in a way, it's like, well, you kinda have to bring it up, because it's pretty obvious, especially if you look at me, I'm sitting here crying about BLM, and it's like, "Girl, you barely look it." But anyway, and I am, and it still affects me, but I would be a fool to say that it affects me as much as it does other people. I've got privileges. Um, so yeah, my even though my father came from a family of um blues musicians and there was a lot of blues music growing up, he raised us on classical music. He raised us, watching tennis, playing tennis. We went to the opera. And I hate to say these things like, well, these are white things. No, I mean, they're things and they might be preferred by some groups more than others or associated with some groups more than others. So I'm not going to say I like white things or I was raised to be like a white person. That's how other people would describe it. So, yeah, I think I'm mixed by design. I think I sound like this by design. There was certainly, yeah, there was encouragement to talk a certain way. My father was very careful to speak a certain way. And in fact, on my mother's side too, my mother's side sounds like this as well, even though they're Mexican. And I didn't find out until recently that my grandfather on my mother's side would take the kids, gather them around the kitchen table or whatever, and bring out the newspaper, and he would read to them. I can't remember if I heard he made them read too, but basically the lesson was, "We are going to read this like white people." And, he wanted them to talk a certain way. So it's coming from both sides, and then here I am sounding like this by design. I think, you know, not in a metaphysical sense that there are no coincidences. I think in life, a lot of things are by design, even if they don't necessarily seem like it. So a lot of my life has been engineered in this way. And in many ways, I benefit from it. I benefit from being light-skinned. I benefit from sounding like this. I benefit from the interests and education that I have had that has been given to me. Um, yeah. So that's not to say that, racial things don't affect my life and don't impact my emotions. So basically, I curled up into a ball during this situation with George Floyd. Um, the murder of George Floyd. I checked out and it was nice to be in quarantine, really, because I did not wanna have to deal with people, and I didn't wanna talk about it. There's there seems to be this funny misconception that Black people like to talk about racism. I had an ex-fiancé who was white, who said, "Oh, yeah, black people love talking about racism. They are, like, always bringing it up." And I was like, "You're a dumb fuck." And I mean, sure, we like it as much as, people with cancer talk about their cancer. No, we don't like talking about it. This isn't fun, but it's necessary. If someone brings it up, we're not doing it for our own amusement, um, or for attention. Like cancer, it's not something fun. It's something that happened to you, and you are gonna damn well talk about it. So, yeah, and so, I mean, I've had coworkers who just wanna come up to me and chat about this kinda stuff, and I'm like, I don't wanna talk about this. It's hard, and so I certainly didn't wanna go on YouTube and start talking about it. Um, but like I said, if I didn't talk about it, I wasn't gonna talk about anything, so I'm doing this purely out of necessity, so I can have a voice. So I'm gonna, and if there's something you absolutely don't want to talk about, that's probably a good sign that you have to talk about it, that you need to talk about it. So I'm talking about it. I'm here kicking and screaming. Um, Basically the situation with Black Lives Matter, and that's such a weird term. I mean, I don't know why I keep calling it that, or BLM. It's not. This whole thing isn't called Black Lives Matter. That's just the term that we as a society sort of associate with this situation. Starting this time around with the murder of George Floyd. Um, the reason why this murder of George Floyd and the resulting fallout is so hard for me, and I think for a lot of people, is because it's a reminder that sizable swaths of the population doesn't care whether we live or die. That is very hard not to take personally. Even if I'm not George Floyd, even if I'm not Breonna Taylor, even if I'm not some other person who has been victimized, even if, some white person says, "Well, you're not like them. You're not like though," like, even if supposedly this isn't about me, I feel it. We all feel it. And I can't help but take it personally that people that I know and don't know don't care whether I live or die. That is very taxing on the spirit, it's taxing on the body. Um, and honestly, I couldn't tell you what's worse, to know whether strangers don't care whether I live or die, or people on my, Facebook feed don't care whether I live or die. Or if they do care whether I live or die, they're a little bit more concerned about whether the target was, you know, damaged or, whether, the highway was blocked off because of a protest. Some things they come, yeah, your life is pretty important, but, some other things come ahead, come before you, like, that traffic jam caused by the protest, or, there was some street closures or boarded up buildings. People, yeah, I didn't realize quite how important Target was to people until one got, damaged in Minneapolis. And so people who had nothing to say about a man being murdered had so much to say about, their stores, insured stores owned by corporations. Oh, but that was something that had to be spoken up about all up and down my feed. Um, so yeah, so to be reminded that you don't matter to people is difficult. And also, of course, one would think, well, why do you care? Who the fuck cares what a bunch of people think about the value of your life? Um, True. Why should I care? Um, because I do. I mean, let's be honest, I do. I do care if lots of people don't care about me, or they care about Target more than me. Um, I would venture to say, like with any situation like that, if somebody's saying something and somehow it hurts you or affects you, it's because there's a part of you that believes it too. Um, Yeah, there must be a part of me that thinks that agrees with them, that thinks my life isn't valuable. And, so when I hear confirmation of that feeling from someone else, lots of other people, people I like, people I don't like, people I trust, people I don't trust, family members, some of them, um, yeah, that definitely it cuts to the core of me in a way. And I would say the reason why I part of me believes it is because we were bred to believe it. We're all in this society and we're getting these messages that, about the value of certain lives versus others. And it's in all of us. I compare racism to um the virus in Walking Dead or any zombie movie where basically we all have it. We've all got the virus. Some of us just show it more than others, show symptoms more than others. So, yeah, that's the long and short of it. This situation crippled me because I felt that people didn't care whether I lived or died, and there was a part of me that sort of agreed with them. And yeah, I mean, I told someone, racism is kind of like death in that it's there. You know you're gonna die. We all know we're gonna die. But if we sit around thinking about it, we wouldn't be able to function. So you kind of can manage to live your life without thinking about it constantly. You only think about it unless you have to. When you're reminded that you're gonna die or you're reminded that there is racism, it freaks you the fuck out. Because, it's a truth that you are forced to look at, that you don't wanna look at, and if you did sit around looking at it all the time, you would be fucked up. So, it was another, like the, stuff in Ferguson, like all the other times, it was that reminder of, "Hey, hey, you, people don't care whether you live or die. People don't see you as a person. Just wanted to let you know, just wanted to remind you that that's still the case, even if you sort of go around from day to day acting like everything's okay." So it was a reminder that I did not want, but I guess we all needed because, when these things come up, we do, I think, make some progress. The thing is, it's so sick that someone has to be ritually sacrificed on camera every once in a while to remind us, oh, yeah, Black Lives Matter. I mean, I love dystopian fiction, and this is very, but I don't like it in real life. And this is a very dystopian fiction kind of thing where someone has to be killed to remind us that, you know, people are important. If you just tell them, my life matters and maybe I shouldn't be killed, it's like, get out of here. But oh, when they watch it, when someone's murdered on camera, then they understand. So, I guess so I got that out of the way. So now I've, unhinged my jaw and now I've unlocked my jaw. And now I can talk again. So I got that out of the way. I talked about racism and Black Lives Matter and I didn't want to, but of course I'm glad I did. And now I'm free to talk about other things. So thank you so much for joining me, and you have a lovely day. Bye bye.